Wayne Newton is 83 years old, and he's still working. Some fans think this is great because they get to see Mr. Entertainment perform again. But other people believe Newton is still performing in his 80s because he needs the money, not because he loves it. This has made fans wonder how someone as talented as Newton, who was so successful, ended up with such a sad story in his later years. He was actually called Mr. Las Vegas. Even though he had tons of sold-out shows, he lost all his money, went into debt, and spent years in court fighting lots of lawsuits. Let's look at how Newton's story became a warning to others, and how he still managed to put the pieces back together to keep his legacy important. From the very start in Norfolk, Virginia, Newton lived and breathed music. He was born with perfect pitch, which means he could hear any note perfectly. But even as a little kid, he worked hard to get better and learn more skills instead of just relying on his natural talent. When he was only 6 years old, he was learning to play the piano, guitar, and steel guitar. This was even more amazing when you know that young Newton was fighting really bad asthma as a kid. His health problem was so serious that his doctor told his parents they had to move somewhere else so Newton could have a better life. Keep in mind, his parents didn't have a lot of money at all. By the time the family moved to Phoenix, because of the doctor's advice, Newton's father was working 2 jobs to support the family. Watching his father work so hard to put food on the table pushed Newton to take action. Seeing how hard Newton worked, his parents decided that if he was going to keep performing, his older brother would have to be his partner, so he could watch over and take care of young Newton, who was barely a teenager at the time. Soon after they got to Phoenix, the brothers heard about a local TV talent show called Lou King Rangers, and they signed up for the competition. And this wasn't some easy talent show. Like Newton explained, 2 kids had to do 6 shows every single night competing against groups that had 6 or 8 people. And it had a spinning stage, so there was no time to set up or take down equipment. When it was your turn to be on stage, you pressed a button and the stage turned and boom, you're on. He and his brother performed playing steel guitar, and they ended up winning the talent show. Newton said it was an amazing experience and it gave him incredible training. After winning the competition, the owner of Cool TV, Tom Chauncey, who also aired the talent show, gave the brothers their own TV show called Rascals in Rhythm, and he became their mentor. And on the weekends, Newton and his brother as the Rascals in Rhythm were performing in traveling road shows of the Grand Ole Opry and on ABC TV's Ozark Jubilee, which even had President Dwight Eisenhower watching. All this attention got the brothers way more gigs than they ever imagined, and they were still going to school. Newton was going to North High School at the time. You'd think that with all the time he had to spend on rehearsals and actual performances, he would be just an okay student at best. Not this kid. He was the sophomore class president and a member of the Junior ROTC, which is a military training program. No wonder he was doing so well in his music career. For him, whatever he wanted to do, he gave it his all, and then some. But near the end of his junior year of high school, Newton would make a surprising decision. A talent agent from Las Vegas had seen him and his brother performing on their local TV show and decided to give him a shot. They not only passed the audition, but impressed the agent so much that he signed the brothers right away and scheduled their first performance in Las Vegas at the Fremont Hotel. The boys, just like always, did amazingly well, and by closing night, they were offered a 1-year contract to keep performing in Las Vegas. And at this big moment, Newton made his choice to leave North High School just before finishing his junior year to go after his music career. Of course, this wasn't a decision his parents were happy about, but Newton was determined, and off to Las Vegas he and his brother went. This decision would later turn out to be really important for his career. One day at the Fremont Hotel, the agent who had signed Newton told him about Jackie Gleason, who had been taking a break and was now coming back on TV. Gleason was passing through Phoenix and had decided to have a luncheon there. Luckily, Newton had gotten booked to perform at the luncheon, but he had a problem. He didn't know any Irish songs, so he had to learn the song Danny Boy on the drive from Vegas to Phoenix. He finally got to the luncheon, did his performance, and ended with Danny Boy. Gleason was so impressed he stood up and said to Newton, "Don't go on any other TV show before you go on mine." Thanks to Gleason, Newton would get his first big break on national television. But since they didn't have a hit record, All they had going for them was that spot on Gleason's show. So their manager got them a job at the Copacabana Lounge. It was while they were still working with Gleason that Bobby Darin, a music producer, signed Newton to Capitol Records and started working with him to make his first record. The first song Newton did with Darin was called Heart. Then they worked on Danky Schoen. Danky Schoen became a huge hit, reaching the top 15 on the Hot 100 chart. His songs were becoming major songs in pop culture, and many other popular celebrities like Lucille Ball and Jack Benny helped him get bigger by using him as their opening act for their different shows. Newton's fame soon got to the point where big media companies offered him his own show. But he turned them down because he didn't want other people controlling his career. Around this time, Newton and his brother ended their partnership after working together for almost 10 years. Newton explained that his brother never liked being in show business and only did it because their parents told him to look out for Wayne. Now Newton was on his own, and the only direction to go was up. After Elvis Presley died and a bunch of older stars in the industry were gone, the spot for the biggest entertainer in Las Vegas was up for grabs. Newton was the only person who could fill those shoes. He was headlining big events and even held the record for the biggest crowds at those shows. In fact, he was called the biggest money maker in the history of Vegas. Nobody draws crowds like that week after week. Not Elvis, not Sinatra. There's just no comparison. Newton signed a new contract to work 36 weeks a year for Howard Hughes' Suma Hotels. This great deal let him afford the fancy life of a ranch home where he raised prize Arabian horses. But as the years went by, Newton became more and more restless. He wanted to be more independent and not have to answer to a boss. So he began to look for ways he could move up to a better financial level. One of the investment opportunities that caught his attention was the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas. Getting control of the hotel turned out to be way more stressful than he thought. He had never been good at managing his money and had let important money decisions go to people who didn't care about what was best for him. Newton was brilliant at entertainment, but had never been interested in the business side of things. For 2 years, Newton was part owner of the Aladdin Hotel in a partnership that led to a bunch of lawsuits and a failed attempt to buy the whole hotel. Before long, he was falling into money trouble. Trying to fix the situation, there are rumors that Newton had dealings with people who broke the law. The rumors were reported in the news, and Newton wasn't happy about it, so he ended up suing NBC News for libel. He claimed the network had reported that he partnered with the mafia to buy the Aladdin. In court, Newton won the lawsuit at first and was awarded $19 million in damages. But NBC appealed the decision, and it was decided that there was no proof the rumors had been spread to be mean or on purpose. So Newton got nothing in the end. What seemed like just a loss in court turned out to be much worse. In 1992, Newton filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy to reorganize about $20 million in debts. He said a lot of that money was spent while he was suing NBC. Other people he owed money to were the IRS, which said he owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. Since winning the case didn't work out, he decided to work on a different way to deal with his money problems. He joined up with Tony Orlando, and the two opened up a venue together in the city originally called the Talk of the Town. Both of them believed that with their combined star power, they were going to fill the 2,000-seat venue. Unfortunately, they really overestimated how many people would come and got way less than 1,000 people showing up. They weren't making enough money to pay their $2 million rent. And the problems didn't stop at money. Newton had hidden recording devices in a private room that he and his partner shared. The spying devices were found by Orlando's son, which made him really upset. With trust destroyed, Orlando decided to end their partnership, and Newton took over the venue by himself. By the beginning of the 2000s, it was renamed the Wayne Newton Theater. In 2001, he planned to turn his house into a museum. He partnered with a company called CSD to turn his home into a tourist attraction. CSD put around $70 million into the project, with $50 million going toward fixing up the home and $20 million going straight into his pockets. When Newton made this deal with CSD, there was an understanding that he would move out of the property. However, several years after the deal had been made, it started to look like the singer had no intention of actually doing that. All the while, the money he owed the IRS kept getting bigger. In August 2005, the IRS filed a lawsuit against Newton, saying that he and his wife owed more than $1.8 million in taxes and penalties. For years later, Newton was in trouble with officials at Oakland County International Airport in Waterford, Michigan. They said he owed the airport more than $60,000 for unpaid parking fees because of his abandoned $2 million plane. The jet needed repairs and Newton didn't have the money to pay for them. So all he could do was leave the plane sitting there. Eventually, he was able to pay to have the jet taken apart and shipped to his home, where he had it put back together in his backyard. In the middle of all this, Newton was taking wild animals into his care. Along with lots of horses, his property has also been home to monkeys, sloths, exotic birds, and many other creatures. He couldn't even pay for their food. In February 2010, Bruton Smith sued Newton, claiming he hadn't paid back a loan. Smith wanted to take Newton's Las Vegas ranch, Casa de Shenandoah. The museum scam also came back to hurt Newton as another lawsuit over the stalled project landed on him. The lawsuit showed that Newton collected $20 million with the understanding that he would move out and let the property be turned into a museum. The person suing claimed that he had put $50 million into the project, but that Newton had failed to move out and had purposely stopped the renovation. So on December 17th, 2012, a U.S. bankruptcy court approved the sale of Newton's Casa de Shenandoah to be put up for sale at over $50 million. The property stayed on the market for 3 years until Newton reached an agreement with Lacey Harbor, the businessman who owned 70% of the company that had bought Casa de Shenandoah. Newton and his family moved back into the property. And in September 2015, the museum was finished and opened for public tours. It kept hosting public tours for 3 years before it was closed for renovations. While Newton might have been lucky to keep his home, there are still echoes of debts worth millions of dollars that he supposedly owes to former friends. This is really heartbreaking and unfortunate, especially when you realize that Newton didn't lose his money gambling or on drugs, but simply through bad management and bad investments. In 2020, Newton appeared in a TV commercial for Caesar's Palace. As soon as he could, he returned to performing. Newton continues to earn people's respect because he didn't just give up. His return to performing was not stopped by the fact that he hurt his back in 2021, something that would have made most people his age quit. Maybe one of the biggest reasons behind Newton's decision has always been his loved ones. He has been married twice. His first wife was Elaine Okamura, a former Pan Am stewardess who he was married to for 17 years, and they had a daughter together. His second and current wife is Kathleen McCrone, a lawyer, and they also have a daughter. Newton is now 83 and is a regular performer at the Flamingo Las Vegas Hotel. When he is not performing, Newton spends his time with his family and his horses. He once famously said, "My two loves in life were music and horses, and I couldn't decide which I loved more." Despite all the ups and downs, you can't help but notice that the man has found himself some peace, is still in good health, and is doing what he loves doing best.